In June 1999, on the cusp of a new millennium, as the world anticipated change, 5 young graduates, full of hope and youthful exuberance, vanished without a trace during a trip meant to be the culmination of their school years. This journey marked the end of one life stage and the exciting anticipation of an unknown future. Instead of a joyful return home, their fate became a sinister mystery, plunging families and an entire community into an abyss of despair. For 22 long years, there was no news, no leads, just an oppressive silence that seemed to have swallowed their traces forever. Then, over 2 decades later, a sudden, furious storm lashed the coast, seemingly by fate, uncovering a long-buried secret that, by all accounts, was never meant to be found. What truly happened to the class of '99? Scattered yet ominous details, remnants of a beach bonfire, a mysteriously missing camcorder, a discovered hidden hatch, and finally, an anonymous confession. All these puzzle pieces point to something far darker and more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Their disappearance seemed written in invisible ink, but now, under the pressure of the elements and the persistence of a few, its chilling pages are beginning to emerge. For them, this trip was the embodiment of ultimate freedom, a taste of the limitless possibilities opening up after graduation. 5 inseparable high school friends, whose bond was forged since middle school, meticulously planned their post-graduation journey to a remote, almost secluded coastal town called Belmere Bay. Their dreams were simple and pure. No parental guidance, no strict rules, just endless sun, golden sand, and a carefree celebration of adulthood. The last message sent by one of them was both prophetic and chilling. A photo of their fully packed car, accompanied by a concise yet promising caption. Next stop, forever. No one could have imagined how literal and tragic that forever would become. Within just 48 hours of that message, they vanished into thin air. There were no witnesses, no contact, no warning whatsoever that could have foreshadowed disaster. They simply disappeared, leaving behind only emptiness and growing anxiety. Their disappearance became not just an event, but a gaping wound in the hearts of their loved ones, a symbol of abruptly cut short youth and unfulfilled hopes. When the teenagers didn't return home after a week, their families, tormented by growing anxiety and a sense of dread, finally raised the alarm. Initially, following standard protocols, the police treated the case as a typical teenage runaway, assuming the young people had simply decided to extend their vacation or test their boundaries. However, as details emerged, it became clear that too much in this story didn't add up, raising more questions than answers. The motel they claimed to have booked had no record of their stay, as if they had never crossed its threshold. Their car, once a symbol of their freedom and adventure, was found abandoned on a dusty dirt road leading nowhere. The doors were locked, which was odd in itself, and even more unsettling, there were no signs of struggle or even footprints nearby, indicating no resistance or hasty departure. The strangest and most inexplicable detail was that no locals, neither on the busy beach, nor in cozy cafes, nor at gas stations, remembered seeing them. It was as if they had never arrived in town, as if their appearance was merely a mirage. But the families knew they had arrived. And if they had arrived, something undoubtedly happened, something that erased all their traces and memories of them. Ask any old-timer in Belmere Bay, and they'll surely tell you about a mysterious stretch of coastline locals call the Swallow. This place isn't marked on any map, nor are there any signs leading to it, yet stories about it, passed down through generations, are countless and full of ominous forebodings. Locals, with a tremor in their voice, claim it's a cursed tidal pool where things vanish without a trace, from small fishing boats to family dogs, and most horrifyingly, even people. For some, it's just an old superstition, a grim legend passed down by fishermen, perhaps meant to explain the unexplainable or simply warn of the sea's dangers. But others, with unwavering certainty, swear it's the truth, backing their words with personal observations or ancestral tales. One elderly man, whose eyes had seen much, claimed that on the foggy night of the teenager's disappearance, he saw vague figures gliding in the mist near the cliffs, like ghosts emerging from the deep sea. However, despite the potential importance of this testimony, the police, for unknown reasons, never bothered to investigate this information, leaving it hanging in the air as yet another unsolved mystery of Belmere Bay. In 2011, 12 years after the 5 graduates vanished into thin air, a nondescript box of random electronics arrived at a thrift store in a neighboring town. Among old wires, broken players, and forgotten gadgets, a battered but surprisingly intact camcorder was discovered. To everyone's surprise, it was still working. When a curious clerk inserted a tape and pressed play, a scene unfolded on the screen that made his heart stop. The recording showed the 5 teenagers, the very missing graduates, carefree, laughing and dancing around a bright bonfire on the beach, their faces illuminated by the flames and youthful happiness. But the idyll was short-lived. Suddenly, the footage shifted to panic, chaotic running, and heart-wrenching screams that pierced the silence. The clip abruptly ended with a loud, deafening thud, leaving the viewer in shock and bewilderment. Subsequent examination confirmed that one of the missing students held the camera, lending undeniable authenticity to the recording. But the most shocking discovery was the timestamp. It indicated 1 day after their presumed disappearance, completely contradicting the official narrative. The question that plagued everyone was, how did this recording end up 60 meters from the scene and remain untouched, hidden from plain sight, for 12 whole years, as if waiting for its moment to reveal a piece of the terrible truth? While officials, facing a lack of clear evidence and growing public pressure, quietly but decisively closed the case, declaring it cold. The families of the missing teenagers, especially the mothers, refused to accept this outcome. For them, it wasn't just a case, but a raw pain pulsating every day. Lisa Grant and Maria Velasquez, 2 mothers whose hearts were torn by grief, transformed from ordinary homemakers into true, tireless investigators. Driven by boundless love and desperation, they methodically retraced their children's every step, questioning every motel owner, every store clerk, every passerby in the area, hoping to find even the slightest lead. They even hired private divers to search the coastal waters where they believed answers might be hidden. Every dead end, every dismissed theory, only fueled their resolve, transforming their grief into an iron will. One piece of evidence that could have changed the course of the investigation, a fragment of a torn hoodie found on an unexamined cliff, was to their deepest disappointment ignored by the police. However, the mothers knew this fragment perfectly matched one of their sons' clothing. Their quest for truth was relentless, their love for their children inexhaustible, and they were ready to go to any length to uncover the mystery that had consumed their lives. Years passed, but Lisa Grant never ceased her search, clinging to any, even the most fleeting, hope. One day, while sifting through her son's old belongings, she stumbled upon his long-forgotten email login details. It was an act of desperation, but it yielded a stunning result. Hidden deep in the drafts, like a carefully hidden message from the past, was a screenshot of GPS coordinates. This was an emergency signal sent from her son's phone, and incredibly, it was timestamped 3 days after the group of teenagers had officially disappeared. The location indicated on the screenshot was very specific, a forest preserve just 45 meters from the coast. This discovery contradicted the official report, which claimed all the teenagers' phones had gone dead the night of their disappearance. However, metadata, meticulously analyzed by Lisa and her assistants, indicated otherwise, showing phone activity days later. Later, when technical experts confirmed the signal's authenticity, it became a true earthquake in the investigation. It changed everything: the timeline of events, the presumed location, and most importantly, it revealed that the teenagers might have been alive much longer than believed, opening new, frightening prospects in this already grim story. 17 years after that tragic disappearance, when hope had almost faded, a new, unexpected witness emerged. A man named Frank Larrabee, a former retired security guard who once worked at a nearby private beach, suddenly came forward with a statement capable of overturning all previous assumptions about what happened. He claimed that on the night of the disappearance, he saw a group of young people strikingly similar to the missing teenagers leaving the beach bonfire site. But the most chilling part of his account was that, according to him, they were followed by a tall, sinister man in a black hoodie, like a shadow stalking its prey. When asked why he had remained silent all these years, Frank Larrabee replied with a disarming simplicity that only amplified the sense of hopelessness. No one ever asked. His story, if true, added a chilling, entirely new layer to the already convoluted case, pointing to the possible presence of a third party on that fateful night. The unidentified figure described by Larrabee was never identified, remaining another phantom in this endless string of unanswered questions, but its appearance only reinforced suspicions of a violent disappearance. However, when Maria Velasquez, not losing hope, requested declassified regional maps, her persistence was rewarded with a completely unexpected discovery. Among a multitude of topographical data, she found something strange and highly suspicious: an old U.S. government boundary, marked with the ominous label "Authorized Access Only," dated from the late 1990s. This mysterious area was less than 2 miles from the teenager's last known location, immediately raising Maria's deep suspicions. Digging deeper, she began to uncover persistent rumors of a now-abandoned military testing ground, which locals claimed was hidden deep within the cliffs, away from prying eyes. Even more unsettling, locals recalled that trucks, presumably military, began arriving in the area just days after the students vanished, as if something was being hastily removed or concealed. Could the teenagers, in their innocent thirst for adventure, have stumbled upon something strictly forbidden, a secret the government was desperately trying to conceal from public view? This question hung in the air, adding a sinister undertone of state secrecy and conspiracy to the tragedy of their disappearance. In 2021, 22 years after the 5 graduates vanished without a trace, nature itself decided to reveal part of the terrible truth. Sudden and powerful floods that struck the Belmere Bay coast eroded part of the rocky shore, exposing what had been hidden underground for decades. Skeletal remains surfaced. It was a shocking, yet long-awaited discovery. Subsequent DNA testing confirmed the worst fears. The remains belonged to Travis Donnelly, one of the 5 missing students. However, what shocked everyone without exception was not so much the discovery itself, but the location of the body. It was not where he was last seen, nor in the coastal area where the main searches had been conducted. Travis's body was found 27 miles inland, in a shallow grave covered by the rusted bed of an old truck. No one had ever searched for him in this remote, abandoned place. His death was classified as trauma of undetermined origin, only deepening the mystery. But the position of the bones, meticulously examined by experts, indicated restraint, suggesting Travis had been immobilized. He did not disappear willingly. He was hidden, and this discovery completely changed the nature of the investigation, transforming it from a missing persons case into one of deliberate concealment. Forensic experts, meticulously examining Travis's remains, discovered deep, distinct grooves on the bones of his forearms. These marks, they concluded, were consistent with tight restraints or ties, indicating the young man had been bound tightly. However, what was extremely unusual and disturbing was the absence of any defensive wounds on the body, no signs that he had tried to resist or fight his captors. This lack of struggle raised many questions and only deepened the mystery of his death. Toxicology tests, conducted to identify any possible substances in his system, yielded no results, providing no leads. The cause of death remained undetermined, but trauma was undoubtedly present and evident. Someone had immobilized him, preventing resistance, and this act was premeditated. This horrifying discovery opened the door to far darker and more terrifying possibilities than anyone could have imagined. Was this a targeted abduction, meticulously planned and brutally executed? And if so, what happened to the other 4 teenagers? Were they still alive, held somewhere, or had they met the same fate, also buried like Travis in some unmarked grave, waiting for their secret to be revealed by chance or the persistence of loved ones? Just months after Travis's remains were identified, an anonymous letter arrived at the local sheriff's department. It was unsigned, had no fingerprints, and was sent from another state, making it difficult to trace. In simple yet ominous words, it read, "They found one, but there are still 4. We told them not to go up the ridge. We told them it was closed for a reason." The letter's content was both cryptic and unsettling, indicating the sender possessed inside information about what happened. Investigators, accustomed to similar hoaxes in high-profile cases, were quick to dismiss it as another attempt to mislead. However, Lisa and Maria, whose hearts were full of hope and despair, didn't doubt its authenticity for a second. Their intuition told them this was no mere prank. Handwriting analysts, consulted by the mothers, confirmed their fears. They noted clear signs of psychological distress in the writing style, indicating that whoever sent this message was experiencing intense emotional turmoil and undoubtedly knew something about the missing teenager's fate. This letter, despite its anonymity, became another, albeit unclear, yet crucial link in the chain of evidence, pointing to a deeply hidden truth. During one of her endless cleanups at Travis's childhood home, Maria, immersed in memories of her son, discovered a battered, well-worn notebook buried deep in an old backpack, like a hidden treasure. Inside, among ordinary notes and drawings in Travis's handwriting, was a single page marked with the date, June 19th, the day after their last known appearance. This was a date that could change everything. On this page, in uneven, almost trembling handwriting, a single sentence was scrawled, but its content was truly chilling. Still no contact. Saw the light again last night. It blinked twice. We are not alone. The handwriting was erratic, as if written in haste or a state of severe distress. The pages after this entry were smeared, possibly from moisture, indicating the notebook might have been in unfavorable conditions. Experts later confirmed that the ink type and its aging were consistent with 22 years of exposure, lending undeniable authenticity to the entry. This single sentence, found in an old notebook, completely rewrote the entire timeline of events, indicating that the teenagers were alive and possibly held captive, observing something mysterious and ominous happening around them. Following these new, unexpected leads, Lisa Grant, in tandem with a local reporter whose professional curiosity was piqued by this mysterious story, began tracking rumors about a hermit. This man, according to reports, lived in a secluded cabin without electricity, located near the forest preserve, precisely where Travis's last GPS signal was recorded. His name was Glenn Rohr, and he turned out to be a former military contractor discharged for erratic and aggressive behavior. Police had already questioned him in 2004 on unrelated trespassing charges, but at that time, his name was not linked to the graduate's disappearance. In 2005, Glenn Rohr himself vanished without a trace, as if he melted into the wilderness. When authorities finally searched his abandoned property, they discovered a series of ominous findings. Burnt scraps of clothing that could have belonged to the teenagers, tight restraints similar to those that left marks on Travis's bones, and most disturbingly, a rusted camcorder, identical to the one found at the thrift store, but without a tape. These discoveries seemed to confirm the worst suspicions, pointing to Rohr's possible involvement in the tragedy. In 2023, when a 1999 graduate's disappearance case had already become a legend, a nondescript USB drive with no identifying marks was received by mail at the local sheriff's department. It contained only one low-quality audio file, 47 seconds long, but its content was capable of piercing one to the core. The recording began with the innocent laughter of the teenagers, their voices full of youthful, carefree spirit. Then, suddenly, the laughter was replaced by heavy, ragged breathing, followed by a sinister, barely audible whisper, don't let them see the light. Immediately after, heart-wrenching screams erupted, abruptly cutting off and leaving only an oppressive silence. Analysts could not confirm the file's exact origin, but stated with certainty that it was recorded on a portable device from the early 2000s, consistent with the disappearance timeline. Travis's sister, upon listening to the recording, swore she recognized his voice in the first few seconds, lending incredible, horrifying authenticity to the audio file. If this recording is genuine, is the only live audio from that fateful night, the only sound trace left by the teenagers in the last moments of their freedom before they plunged into the unknown. Just weeks after the horrifying audio recording leaked to the public, residents of Belmere Bay began noticing something strange and unsettling. At night, in the ridge area where the abandoned military testing ground was rumored to be hidden, unidentified black SUVs began regularly entering and exiting. Their appearance was silent and ominous, like shadows gliding in the dark. A local drone enthusiast, whose curiosity outweighed fear, managed to capture video of these mysterious operations. The footage showed men in tactical gear surveying the cliffs with sophisticated equipment, as if searching for something or, conversely, concealing it. When this video appeared on Reddit, it was deleted within 24 hours, and the user's account vanished with it, only intensifying suspicions of conspiracy. No public statements were made regarding this, but records show that federal agents quietly requested access to forest surveillance logs, indicating their covert involvement. The official stance remained unchanged. It was an unrelated operation, but for the residents of Belmere Bay, this explanation sounded like a mockery, only confirming their belief that the government was hiding something. During a large-scale volunteer search, organized by those who had not lost hope of finding any traces of the missing, another truly shocking discovery was made under dense bushes near an old, overgrown trail. They found a sealed underground concrete hatch, like an entrance to a secret shelter or perhaps a trap. Inside this grim hideout were rotted sleeping bags and old, dried snack wrappers, indicating a prolonged stay. But the most chilling and undeniable proof was the discovery of Rachel Kim's student ID, one of the 5 missing. This was a direct, undeniable fact linking the site to the tragedy. However, the most astonishing and chilling discovery awaited them on the shelter wall. In uneven handwriting, as if scrawled in haste or desperation, it read, "We are not dead yet." Forensic analysis dated this inscription to within a week after the group's disappearance, which was a true revelation. It meant that at least some of them were alive after the world stopped looking for them, after they were declared missing, and this discovery gave the families new, agonizing hope, mixed with the horror of realizing what they had endured. As news of the mysterious hatch and its ominous contents spread, the story of a 1999 graduate's disappearance once again gained national attention, stirring public interest and generating a wave of new theories. Conspiracy theorists, as always, blamed secret government experiments, suggesting the teenagers were unwitting victims of clandestine research. Others suspected a serial abductor, who, they believed, was protected by someone influential, capable of concealing his crimes. Skeptics, attempting to find a rational explanation, claimed the teenagers simply got lost and panicked, leading to their tragic demise. However, this simplistic theory completely ignored a multitude of irrefutable evidence. The found camcorder with its panic-stricken recording, the mysterious audio recording with a whisper, the inscriptions on the shelter wall indicating they were alive, and, of course, Travis's body, buried miles from the disappearance site. The truth, 22 years later, remains unknown to anyone, hidden beneath a veil of mystery. The only thing everyone agrees on is that something terrible happened that night, something that was never meant to be found, and that continues to haunt the minds of those who dare to delve into this grim story. Every June, despite the years past and the lack of answers, the parents of the missing teenagers still gather in Belmere Bay. This has become their annual, sacred ritual, a symbol of their undying love and memory. They light 5 candles, one for each teenager, and reverently place them at the water's edge, allowing the flames to reflect in the dark waves. They know they may never get closure, never learn the full truth about their children's fate. But they refuse to let silence bury their children twice, first physically and then in memory. For them, this act of remembrance is not just a tribute. It's a form of resistance against oblivion, their way of fighting the silence that tries to consume their children's story. It's their way of telling the world that these lives mattered, and their disappearance will not be forgotten. We may never know what truly happened to the class of 1999, what sinister force or chain of events led to their disappearance without a trace. But every new detail, every piece of evidence uncovered, and every ominous whisper from the darkness of the past reminds us of an unshakable truth. Some stories refuse to stay buried. They break through the layers of time and oblivion, demanding to be heard. And sometimes, the most terrifying thing about such stories is not what has already been found and revealed, but what still remains hidden, unsolved, waiting for its moment to come to light and reveal the full extent of its horror. The mystery of the 99 graduates remains an open wound, a reminder that the deepest nightmares can hide where you least expect them, and that sometimes the most frightening thing is what still hasn't been found.